My name is Elise Carrington. I'm 27 years old. I was getting married in 2 months, and for the first time, it really felt real. Not just a Pinterest board or a checklist, but an actual day racing toward me. Dress shopping was supposed to be one of those dreamy milestones everyone tells you about. You know, soft lighting, champagne, your loved ones tearing up when you walk out of the fitting room, that kind of thing. So I did what every excited bride does. I gathered my closest friends, my stepmom Clara and her daughter Brianna, and we made a day of it. On paper, it sounded perfect. In reality, there was a shadow over the whole thing that I tried very hard to ignore. To give some background, my dad is married to Clara. She's not the cliche evil stepmother. If anything, she's the complete opposite. Soft-spoken, kind, the sort of woman who always shows up with soup when you're sick and remembers everyone's birthdays without Facebook reminders. My dad married her when I was already in college, so I skipped the whole new mom in my childhood adjustment phase. Honestly, I was happy for him. My biological mom died in a freak accident when I was younger. It was the kind of thing that doesn't make sense no matter how many times people explain it. Wrong place, wrong time, permanent damage. One day she was there, humming in the kitchen, and the next, gone. Our house changed overnight. The noise faded, the warmth thinned, the air felt heavier. Before that, my parents had the kind of relationship people envy. They were that couple. Evening walks holding hands, dancing in the kitchen to old songs while something simmered on the stove. My dad bringing her fresh flowers every Sunday, the stems wrapped in cheap paper that she always treated like gold. On Sundays, we'd have barbecues in the backyard, and they'd dance on the patio like no one was watching, even though I always was, peeking from the back steps and thinking, this is what love looks like. Losing her felt like someone had taken a chunk out of my chest and just left it hollow. After she died, my dad didn't even look at another woman for years. He poured everything into raising me. Every parent-teacher conference, every recital, every stupid school event where we had to dress as historical figures, he was there, clapping too loudly, pretending his heart wasn't broken. He became both parents because he refused to let me feel like I was missing something, even though we both knew I was. So when he finally met Clara, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt relieved. He deserved to laugh again, to have someone to talk to late at night who wasn't his daughter, to grow old with someone instead of growing old alone. And Clara, she never tried to replace my mom. She treated my mom like a real person, not a ghost to be erased. She respected the way my dad and I still talked about her. For that, I respected Clara. The only real problem in all of this has always been Brianna. Brianna is 3 years younger than me. She has a biological father, technically, but he's one of those men who are fathers on paper only. He pops in and out of her life with the commitment level of a tourist, just long enough to stir things up and disappear again. Because of that, Clara has basically been her entire world, which sounds sad until you see how it plays out. Brianna is attached to her mother in this possessive, territorial way. It's not just love, it's ownership. When Clara and my dad started dating, Brianna took it as a personal attack. She didn't just sulk, she went on a full-on sabotage campaign. She once told Clara that she'd caught my dad texting other women. Explicit conversations, disgusting images, the whole dramatic soap opera package. Clara was destroyed. She came to my dad shaking, asking him how he could do this to her. I still remember Dad's face, stunned, then hurt, then strangely calm. He handed her his phone and said, "Check it, all of it, right now." So she did. Message after message, app after app, nothing. No secret women, no flirty texts, no hidden accounts. Just work chats, dad jokes, and pictures of me and the dog. When they confronted Brianna, she stuck to the lie for as long as she could, swearing she was telling the truth. But cornered for evidence, she eventually crumbled and admitted she made it all up. She knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted her mother to break up with my dad. I'd never seen my father look so small, not angry, just deeply hurt. He told Clara, very plainly, that if things continued like that, maybe their relationship couldn't survive. He wasn't willing to stay with someone whose daughter was actively trying to destroy his reputation. That scared Clara. After that, there was a serious sit-down talk, a tearful apology from Brianna, promises that it would never happen again. We wanted to believe her. We tried, but some people don't change just because they say the words. Even when she stopped outright lying, she never stopped resenting us. At their wedding, Brianna got drunk and managed to spill red wine all over Clara's white dress, right down the front. It was not an accident. You could see it in the slow way she tipped the glass, in the way her eyes never left my father's face. Later, she grabbed his microphone, and instead of a heartwarming toast, she delivered this bitter, rambling speech about how her mother had betrayed her by marrying my dad. She actually said she wished her mom had gone back to her deadbeat father instead. Imagine ruining your own mother's wedding because you can't stand the idea that she might be happy. Fast forward to now. Clara swears Brianna is doing better. Therapy, growth, progress, all the buzzwords. And maybe on paper that's true. But every time we see each other, Brianna is still sharp, snide, and quietly cruel. It's like she's always looking for a loose thread she can tug on until everything unravels. Which brings me back to wedding dress shopping. We spent the whole day in different boutiques. My friends hyped me up. The sales ladies brought out lace and satin and tulle. I smiled, twirled, stepped onto pedestals under bright white lights. But nothing felt right. Every dress looked like I was borrowing someone else's story. When we got home, still buzzing from sugar and exhaustion, I did something I'd been secretly thinking about for months. I went to the back of my closet, reached for the old, carefully wrapped box, and brought out my mother's wedding dress. The room changed. My friends fell quiet. Clara's hand went to her mouth. Even Brianna's eyes widened, just for a second. The dress wasn't trendy or dramatic. It was simple ivory, with lace sleeves and a modest neckline, the fabric worn soft with time. When I slipped it on, it felt familiar, like a hug I'd been missing for years. I could smell faint traces of cedar from the box, and for one wild moment, I swore I smelled my mom's perfume too. I stepped out into the living room, heart pounding. No one said anything at first. Then the compliments started coming, soft at first, then louder. My friends circled me, touching the fabric, talking about alterations and how we could modernize the silhouette without losing its soul. One of my friends, who's great at sewing, immediately started pinching the waist and talking about how she could adjust the hem. Clara had tears in her eyes. Your mom she'd be so proud, she whispered. That made my throat close up. For a moment, everything felt absolutely right. This was how I wanted to honor my mom, by walking down the aisle in the same dress she wore when she promised my dad forever. And then Brianna opened her mouth. With all due respect, she said, voice dripping with sarcasm, I would never be caught dead wearing that thing. The air went ice cold. My friends froze. I felt my stomach drop. She waved a hand at me like I was some mannequin. Maybe for you it's nostalgic or whatever, but honestly, it's plain. Horrendous, actually. I didn't realize you were going for grandma on a budget chic. I heard one of my friends suck in a breath. Clara snapped her head toward Brianna. That's extremely rude, she said sharply. This is Elisa's mother's dress. It's beautiful, and it's a meaningful way to honor her memory. Brianna didn't flinch. She just rolled her eyes. I don't care. The dress is ugly. I can't believe her mother had such bad taste. There it was. Not just my dress. Not just my taste. My mother. The woman who wasn't even here to defend herself. My hands started to shake. I could feel my nails digging into my palms. A part of me wanted to scream, to throw something, to drag her out by the arm. Instead, I took a breath that felt like swallowing a knife and said, as calmly as I could, if you don't have anything nice to say, you can leave. She smirked, clearly thrilled she'd gotten a reaction. As she walked toward the door, she tossed over her shoulder, Don't ask for my opinion if you're not mature enough to handle it. The door shut behind her and the room stayed silent. My friends went into protective mode, showering me with reassurance, but I barely heard them. All I could think was, you insulted my dead mother in my own home. Later that night, Clara pulled me aside into the kitchen. The house was quiet, the dress back in its box on the table between us. I'm so sorry for what Brianna said, she began, eyes shining. You know I don't agree with her. I think what you're doing is beautiful. Your mom would be honored. Then why does it feel like I'm the one who did something wrong? I asked. She winced. I wish you hadn't told her to leave like that. It will only make her more defensive. Maybe if you two sit down and really talk. I laughed bitterly. Talk? Clara, she said my mom had bad taste. She knew exactly what she was doing. I know, Clara said quickly. I know. She was out of line, but she's fragile. Therapy is helping, but she still struggles. If you push back too hard, she'll just dig in deeper. Maybe if you take the high road. Why is it always my job to take the high road? I asked quietly. She didn't have an answer for that. She just reached for my hand, squeezing it like that would fix anything. In that moment, something clicked. No matter how kind Clara is to me, no matter how much she defends me in the moment, there will always be a blind spot where Brianna is concerned. There will always be another excuse, another plea for me to be the bigger person, another suggestion that I should swallow my hurt for the sake of peace. I went to bed that night, still wearing the faint smell of old lace on my skin and the echo of Brianna's words in my ears. I honestly don't feel like I did anything wrong telling her to leave. She crossed a line she can't uncross. But because I respect Clara and because this whole mess is starting to make me question myself, I came here to ask strangers on the internet, am I really the one in the wrong? Am I the a-hole here? Update 1 came after a night of lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying Brianna's words over and over in my mind like they were stuck on a loop. My mother had been gone for years, yet somehow Brianna had managed to reach across time and stab the one place she knew would still bleed. And something in me finally snapped. I wrote, I don't want Brianna at my wedding. It wasn't impulsive, it wasn't emotional, it wasn't me being dramatic or sensitive or vindictive, it was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Brianna had spent years turning every special occasion into a battlefield. Every birthday, holiday, graduation, she always found a way to sour the air, like she took it personally whenever someone else was happy. And I had tolerated it because of Clara, because of my dad, because family is complicated, because she had a hard childhood, because she's trying. But the truth was simple. Brianna didn't want peace. She wanted control. And I was done handing it to her. She hadn't apologized for the dress incident. Not even close. In Brianna's mind, she was the hero of her own story, the one who told the truth, who said what others were too polite to say. Every time she hurt me, she acted like she was doing me some twisted favor. And every time I called her out, she rolled her eyes, said I was too sensitive, said I couldn't handle honesty. That wasn't honesty. That was cruelty wearing cheap perfume. I appreciated Clara for defending me in the moment, but there was always that moment after, the one where Clara sighed heavily and said things like, maybe if you talk it out, maybe she didn't mean it that way, maybe it came out wrong. Years of those maybes had worn me down like water over stone. So I decided no more. This was my wedding, my day, my joy, my boundary. I texted my friends in the wedding group chat about removing Brianna, and their reactions were immediate. Heart emojis, thumbs ups, the digital equivalent of loudly clapping. One friend even wrote, "Thank you, she ruins everything. Let us have one peaceful day." Another added, "Honestly, Elise, you've put up with her longer than anyone else would." It was both validating and heartbreaking. They'd all seen it. Everyone had. I was the last one holding on to the idea that somehow, someday, things might magically get better. The next day, Brianna called. Not texted, called, which meant she wanted maximum theatrics. I answered with a neutral, "Hello?" She started out fake casual. "So, are you still upset about the other day?" Her tone was the same one you'd use when you were asking if someone was still mad you ate their fries. Not if you had insulted their dead mother. I wasn't giving her the reaction she wanted. "We're not close enough for me to be upset," I said evenly. "I'm fine." There was a sharp pause, then a tiny snort. "Okay, well, just so you know, my comment wasn't about you. I was looking out for you, as a well-wisher. I didn't want you looking ugly on your big day." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "Brianna, I'm 5'8", thin, blonde. I don't look bad in any dress." She went silent, only for a second, but long enough to be satisfying. Then she launched into bragging. "Well, anyway, I already picked out my outfit for the wedding. It's stunning, like extremely gorgeous. Honestly, I'm worried I might overshadow you." There it was, the real motive. This wasn't concern. This was competition. And in her head, she had already won. I didn't even blink. "Who says you're invited to the wedding?" Another beat of silence, longer this time. "What? You're not invited. You don't have to worry about overshadowing me because you won't be there." She exploded. "You can't uninvite me. I'm your sister." "You're my stepsister," I corrected calmly. "And even then, you barely qualify." She screeched something, but I hung up. I didn't need to hear her rehearse her usual lines about how she was the victim and I was dramatic. The silence after I ended the call felt like the deepest inhale of my life. Update 3 came a few days later. My dad, when I told him what I did, didn't hesitate. "Good," he said. "Your wedding should be a joyful day. You don't owe anyone access to your happiness. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until he said it. Clara, on the other hand, reached out with a voice full of nerves. She didn't yell or scold. She never does. But I heard the tremor, the fear. Elise, sweetheart, are you sure you want to do this? It might cause a lot of tension later. Brianna, she won't take this well. I know she won't, I said. But she hasn't been kind to me, not once. She doesn't get to ruin this day, too. Clara was quiet for a long time. Then she finally whispered, You're right. I could tell it hurt her to say it, but she did, and she didn't bring it up again. But Brianna? Oh, she brought it up. She brought it up. She blew up my phone. Texts, calls, voicemails. You're petty. You're cruel. You're trying to humiliate me. How dare you? You owe me an apology. Then came the best part. If I'm not invited, you need to pay me back for the dress I bought for your wedding. I actually sat down for this one. I asked her to send a picture of the dress and the price tag. If she wanted money, fine. I wanted receipts. She sent the photo. It was a white dress. Not cream, not blush, not champagne. White. Wedding white. For a moment, I genuinely didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I texted, Were you planning to wear a white dress to my wedding? She replied instantly, Oh my God, Elise, these aren't medieval times. Anyone can wear white. I just like the dress. I didn't even notice it was white. Yeah, sure. I refused to pay for it. Then I added, Maybe save it for the day someone actually wants to marry you. That one stung. She tried to guilt trip me after that, sending paragraphs about how I was heartless, immature, fake, jealous, whatever. I blocked her. My heart was pounding when I did it, but afterward the silence felt like fresh air. Still, even with her gone from my notifications, I couldn't shake this feeling. Brianna wasn't someone who respected boundaries. She wasn't someone who backed off. She wasn't someone who accepted consequences. And deep down beneath all the relief, I knew this wasn't over. Update 4 began the way all good wedding updates begin, with joy and softness and a kind of glowing disbelief that life could actually feel this beautiful. I still can't believe how perfect the ceremony was. The weather cooperated. Warm sunlight, a soft breeze that made my veil flutter but never tangled, the kind of sky that looks photoshopped. When I walked down the aisle, I swear everything felt cinematic, like the world had narrowed down to my fiancé's face and the sound of my heartbeat. People cried. Real tears. Even my dad, who tried so hard to keep it together and failed spectacularly halfway through the vows. The reception was just as magical. The decorations were breathtaking. Soft golds, white hydrangeas, long flowing drapes that made the room feel like a dream. The food was amazing. The music was perfect, and everyone was actually genuinely happy. It was everything I ever wanted until Brianna happened. Because of course she did. She didn't walk in quietly or slip into a corner like a normal, uninvited guest. Oh no. She made an entrance so dramatic it could have been scripted by reality TV producers. The DJ had just started playing one of my favorite upbeat songs. People were dancing, laughing, clinking glasses. My husband had his hands on my waist, and we were about to join the dance floor when the atmosphere shifted in this strange, almost mechanical way, like laughter glitching. The music didn't stop immediately. It sputtered out after a few confused beats as people began to slow, turn, stare toward the entrance. And then I saw her. Brianna stood in the doorway wearing a white wedding dress. Not a white cocktail dress, not a cream gown. A full, floor-length, laced bridal silhouette with a freaking train. The same dress she had demanded I pay for. She looked almost triumphant, chin lifted, shoulders back, like she'd been waiting her whole life for a spotlight big enough to hold her ego. For a heartbeat, no one said anything. It was dead silent except for the faint hum of the speakers. A few guests whispered. Someone dropped their fork. My cousin mouthed, Holy shit. My blood ran cold, but at the same time, a disturbingly calm thought slid through my head. Of course she did. Of course. Before I could move, my dad and Clara were already stepping forward, cutting through the stunned crowd. Clara's face was a weird mix of horror, heartbreak, and maternal instinct fighting to stay upright. Brianna, she said, voice breaking, you need to leave. Dad was firmer, cold in a way I'd never seen him with her. No discussion. You are not welcome here. It was the first time he had ever put up a real boundary with her, and she snapped, hard. Her voice ricocheted through the reception hall. Oh, so that's it? You don't want me here because she doesn't want me here? Because you always favor her? Because she gets everything? Guests looked at each other, wide-eyed. I heard someone whisper, "Is this really happening?" But Brianna was just getting warmed up. "I'm just as much a part of this family as she is," she sobbed, pointing at me, like I'd personally set her house on fire. "But no one cares about me. No one ever has. You all treat her like a princess, and I'm what? Some reject you can toss outside?" Clara reached for her gently. "Brianna, sweetie, please, this isn't the time." "Don't touch me!" Brianna shrieked, jerking away. "You're humiliating me, in front of everyone!" People shifted uncomfortably. Some turned away, others couldn't stop staring, as if watching a slow-motion car crash. The worst part wasn't the screaming, it was the look in her eyes. Not rage, not jealousy. Fear. Deep, clawing fear. Like she was terrified of being replaced, of being unloved, of being forgotten. Like she had been teetering on the edge for years, and this, my happiness, my wedding, my family, pushed her over. Clara whispered, "Please, let's talk outside, okay?" But Brianna couldn't hear her. She was spiraling. "You always choose them over me. Always. You never even cared how I felt. You replaced me the second he came into your life, and now she gets the happy ending and I get nothing." Dad stepped in then, not touching her, but blocking her from going further inside. "That's enough. You are leaving." She screamed like she was being physically dragged, even though no one had laid a hand on her yet. Kicking, yelling, calling them traitors, calling me a butch, calling the whole room fake. Finally, Dad, Clara, and two of my cousins gently but firmly walked her out as she thrashed and cursed. The doors closed. The silence afterward was suffocating. For a full 15 seconds, no one moved, no one breathed, no one spoke. It was like the entire room was rebooting. Then the DJ, bless his brave soul, slowly restarted the music. And just like that, people tried, awkwardly, hesitantly, to resume the celebration. I tried too. I smiled. I laughed when people came to hug me. I danced because everyone insisted I shouldn't let her ruin my night. But part of me felt hollow, like something heavy had cracked inside me that I couldn't put back together yet. Later that night, long after Brianna had been escorted off the venue grounds and security had been posted outside, the remaining guests loosened up again. The joy seeped back in, imperfect but genuine. My friends pulled me into a circle and forced me to dance. My husband kissed my forehead and whispered, "She didn't ruin anything. You look beautiful." And in many ways, he was right. The wedding wasn't destroyed, it survived, but the fallout was brutal. A day later, Clara called me, voice trembling. "Elise, something happened." Brianna had reached out to her. No apology, no accountability, nothing like introspection. Instead, Brianna issued an ultimatum. Clara must divorce my dad and cut me out completely, or Brianna would never speak to her again. Clara told me she just sat there, numb, listening to her daughter demand that she tear her family apart to prove her loyalty. She tried to reason with Brianna, tried to explain that she had embarrassed herself, that she had hurt me, that crashing my wedding in a white dress was unacceptable. She even cried, begging Brianna to understand, to take responsibility for her actions. Brianna refused. She doubled down. She said Clara had betrayed her from the moment she married my dad. She screamed that Clara was a horrible mother, a selfish woman, a traitor. And then she hung up. Clara sat with that pain for days. She told me she kept asking herself how a mother is supposed to respond to something like that, how to love someone who refuses to do anything but burn everything around them. In the end, Clara made a decision I know shattered her. She chose to step away from Brianna. Not forever, not as punishment, but because she finally realized she couldn't keep sacrificing her sanity, her marriage, and her peace to enable Brianna's spiral. "She needs help I can't give her," Clara whispered, "and I can't let her destroy us." Hearing her say that broke something in me too, because no matter how awful Brianna has been, she's still Clara's child, and watching a mother grieve a daughter who's still alive is one of the most painful things I've ever witnessed. I stood there in my kitchen, wedding gifts still unopened around us, listening to Clara cry softly, and all I could think was, some people don't want to be fixed. Some people don't want peace. Some people choose chaos because it's the only language they know. My wedding was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter for me, but for Clara, it was the day she realized her daughter wasn't ready or willing to turn the page. Completed.